What is going on, everyone? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, with a Fallout speculation video. And the reason why I'm making this video is to kind of go hand in hand with a video that was recently uploaded by the guys over at Fudge Muppet. If you check the description below, you're going to see a link to a video entitled The Ideal Fallout New Orleans. And essentially, the Fudge Muppet guys are just speculating on the next possible Fallout if it was set in New Orleans and it was made by Obsidian. So please go check that video out. I collabed with them on it. They're a bunch of great guys, and I highly recommend that you subscribe to them because they do make incredible content, especially their Fallout and Skyrim build videos. So again, please check them out. I'd really appreciate it. But this video is going to be answering a much more specific question. Is it time that the Fallout franchise branches out? Instead of being set in the United States, is it time that the Fallout franchise is set somewhere else overseas or internationally, say in a place like China or Russia or maybe Australia, wink. So of course the question for today's video is, do you think that the next Fallout game, whether Fallout 5 or maybe the next Fallout game that's possibly made by Obsidian, do you think that that game should be set in an overseas or international country and not the United States? Please let me know in the comments below and get all riled up while you're debating that question. And this is a topic that certainly came up before the release or even announcement of Fallout 4. A lot of people were speculating or simply asking the question, can or should Fallout be set in a country other than the United States? Now, in terms of my opinion, I'm going to cheat just a little bit and kind of give a two-sided answer. If you would have come to me before Fallout 4 was actually released, but maybe after it was announced, but certainly before it was released, and you came to me with the idea that possibly Fallout could be set in an international or overseas country aside from the United States, and certainly before the release of Fallout 4, I would have agreed. I would have said, that sounds really cool. It really does open up the opportunity and the variety in terms of the settings that we could see in a particular Fallout game. And of course, a number of different examples that could be given with regards to potential overseas or international countries that Fallout could be set in include China, who of course was one of the main players in the Great War in the world of Fallout. Also as well Russia, especially because we don't necessarily know much about Russia in terms of its participation in the Great War. As far as we know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they were definitely on the side of the United States somewhat, but in comparison to China and in comparison to the United States, their position in the Great War is never really fleshed out as much as those other countries. Even Canada was given much more of a role to play, aside from Russia in the lore of Fallout. So Russia could have been a great setting to set Fallout. Even though we already have games like Metro, it would have been interesting to see how Russia actually coped or dealt with the Great War. Did nukes hit Russia? Presumably yes, but we simply don't know. What we know is that possibly either China or the United States, is not necessarily confirmed, launched their missiles first, and presumably they were targeting each other. My best guess is that China also targeted Russia along with other Western countries, maybe Europe as well. But that also raises another potential setting, somewhere in Europe. Some of these countries in Europe would have obviously gone through the Great War, and this, I guess, is the main argument or the main rationale behind setting Fallout in an international or overseas country. The fact that the Great War affected the entire globe. If you look at the resource wars, it didn't just affect the United States, it didn't just affect China, it affected everyone pretty much, because everyone relied on the oil and the natural resources that essentially spurred the resource wars and therefore spurred the Great War, the nuclear war that pretty much destroyed or decimated mankind. So while yes, the focus of the Fallout franchise to date has of course been on the United States and seeing how it dealt with the Great War and also looking at its role in the lead up towards the Great War, of course there were many other countries that were involved in the Great War. And just going down the list, again, China, it would be very interesting to see the world of China after the nukes were launched on the Great War Day, just to see how life fared. And it would be equally interesting to see the scenario in Russia, or maybe Europe, or maybe Australia, or maybe even Canada. I mean, there are so many different possibilities that the Fallout universe can take itself and can branch out. So yes, if you had come to me with the idea of setting Fallout in an international country or an overseas country of some sort, looking from the perspective of the United States, mind you, then I would have been down for it. However, my answer now has changed, and let me tell you why. As much as I don't want to actually admit it or accept this as a reality, Fallout 4 got an incredible mixed critical reception from fans and critics alike. On the critic front more so, it was seen as a good game, and don't get me wrong, I strongly believe that Fallout 4 is a good game. It might not necessarily be Fallout in the traditional sense that we know in terms of Fallout 3 and more so New Vegas, and of course the original Fallouts, but I still thought that it was a good game, and I know many other critics thought that it was a good game. But of course you cannot deny that when you look at the general Fallout community or fan base, there is a harsh division between fans that didn't necessarily like Fallout 4 and thought it did too much different, versus fans that still think it's okay even though it did try a number of new things and branch out and try to diversify in many different respects. And whether this is down to having a voice protagonist, whether this is down to removing skills, whether this is down to completely overhauling the dialogue system, whether it's down to adding in settlement mode and also a raft of DLC that's specifically focused and centered on the settlement mode, there are a lot of different things that BGS did much different with Fallout 4 compared to past Fallout games. And whether you agree with those changes or not personally, the fact remains that because of a lot of those changes, the Fallout community is very mixed on Fallout 4 because a large portion of it believes it changed too much. It changed the Fallout formula just a little bit too much and took away what we liked as Fallout. I'm not necessarily on the far end of that equation. I probably sit in the middle. I enjoyed the game again. But the point that I'm trying to run home here is that if you look at any comment section, any forum, any discussion based on Fallout, there are a lot of fans that are disenfranchised with Fallout 4 and would like to see the Fallout franchise go a little bit back to its roots and go back to the things that made it really, really popular in the first place, and that made us all love Fallout. And it's specifically because of these kinds of reasons, of Fallout fans being disenfranchised and wanting things to go back to the way they were, that I don't believe that the next Fallout game should be set internationally or overseas or not in the United States. And quite simply, that's because it's just going to be another change that's going to fuel the hatred and the dislike of the Fallout franchise. Again, look at the things that Fallout 4 did differently to past Fallout games, and then ask yourself, imagine if Fallout 4 was also set in China, or imagine if it was also set in Russia or elsewhere, somewhere other than the United States. It just would have been another thing that I believe Fallout fans would have resented a little bit more about Fallout 4, and I think they certainly would resent it as well if it were to occur in a future Fallout game. I think right now, Fallout fans are in the state where they want to see the Fallout franchise go back to its roots just a little bit, and we can't deny that one of the pillars of the Fallout franchise is its setting, and the setting is of course the United States. We've seen it diversify a little bit in terms of some simulations, etc., but predominantly, for the vast majority of these games, they've been set in the United States. And that's important not just as a setting, but also in terms of the music of the franchise. A lot of the music of Fallout is based on that 1940s and 50s Americana music, and of course that's predominantly sourced from the United States as a setting. So if you were to change the setting to somewhere overseas and international, you likely wouldn't get some of that great Fallout music that was American based. Also as well, a lot of the landmarks, a lot of the locations, for example, Fallout 3 set in Washington DC, there's a lot of different landmarks that people have started to attribute to Fallout because it's been so United States heavy. So there are so many different things that makes Fallout important, and all of which are based on the fact that the game is set in the United States. I guess another way to phrase it is that the United States culture truly does permeate a lot of different aspects of the Fallout franchise. Again, whether it's down to the music, whether it's down to a lot of the posters, like the patriotic posters and Protect America and all of that stuff, all of that Americana nationalistic themes that we think of when we think of Fallout set in the United States, a lot of that would obviously be lost if it wasn't set in the United States. And while I'm definitely not saying that that would necessarily be a bad thing or a negative thing, because I still think that interesting stories and interesting settings could be present in other countries around the world, but what I'm just saying is that because Fallout fans have become so disenfranchised with the series at this state because of Fallout 4, as much as I'd like to not admit that's the case, unfortunately it is. I don't want to see the Fallout franchise go in another direction where it's taking another chance, where it's taking another risk, and where it's making another big change to the Fallout formula. So yes, before Fallout 4, I would have thought it was a great idea, but now I think that the safe option to take to try and appease fans is to keep the Fallout franchise in the United States of America. But of course, I would love to get all of your thoughts on this topic, guys. Please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out Fudge Muppet. The link to the video is in the description below. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, And would you kindly keep fighting the good fight?